Today, we're diving deep into a story that has captivated the public for years. A story of love, betrayal, ambition, and survival that unfolded under the unforgiving eye of social media and reality television. At the center of this drama are three individuals whose lives became entangled in ways no one could have predicted: Melody Sheree, Martell Holt, and Arian. What the public has seen on screen has been carefully curated, simplified, and packaged for entertainment. But behind the cameras, behind the glossy Instagram posts and the polished interviews, there was a much more complicated reality, a story of tension, betrayal, misunderstandings, and very real consequences. For years, the narrative was simple. Martell Holt was the charismatic but flawed husband. Melody Sheree was the devoted wife, blindsided by betrayal. And Arian was the other woman, the supposed villain who had destroyed a marriage and disrupted lives. Reality television loved this clean storyline. It was easy for audiences to digest, to judge, and to cheer for or against the characters involved. Social media amplified the drama, with every comment, post, and clip fueling speculation. But the truth, as it often does, was far more nuanced. The people at the center of the story weren't just characters in a show, they were human beings navigating incredibly complex emotions and circumstances, and their lives could not be reduced to a simple narrative of right and wrong. Insiders now paint a picture of a marriage and relationships far more complicated than anyone outside of them could understand. According to sources, the marriage between Martell and Melody was not built on harmony or partnership, but on tension and competition. Arguments went unresolved, emotional distance grew, and behind closed doors, the image of a perfect couple was nothing more than a facade. Meanwhile, Arian's role was misrepresented from the very beginning. The public saw her as the villain, the homewrecker, the woman who shattered a family. But insiders suggest she was a woman trapped in a story she had no control over, someone thrust into a situation she could never navigate without pain or scrutiny. For years, her image was weaponized against her. Her name became a punchline, her struggles became entertainment, and her humanity was almost entirely erased. The drama intensified when private social media messages and screenshots began surfacing. There were accusations that Melody's personal information, phone numbers, Instagram pages, and even her social security number had been exposed without her consent. Some claimed this was part of an orchestrated plan involving Arian and others to manipulate or control the narrative. Confusion ran rampant, with the public unsure of who had access to what, why it was being shared, and to what end. In the middle of this chaos, Arian's intentions were questioned, her actions dissected, and her character judged. But what's striking is how little of this public debate truly reflected the reality of the situation. Screenshots do not tell the full story, private conversations do not reveal context, and in the age of social media, perception often becomes more powerful than reality. And yet, even as the controversy grew, the audience remained hooked. People began to see the story in shades of gray. Arian was no longer just the villain. Some began to sympathize with her, seeing a woman caught in circumstances she never asked for. Martell was trying to defend his perspective, to protect his image and legacy. Melody was fighting to preserve her reputation amidst a storm of rumors, leaks, and social media outrage. And the audience? They were desperate for clarity, but often only found more questions. Who was telling the truth? Who was exaggerating? Who had been wronged the most? It was messy, complicated, and deeply human. The complexity of the situation escalated further with the alleged recordings involving Melody and her children. Clips began circulating online, prompting debate about whether they were genuine, taken out of context, manipulated, or completely fabricated. Viewers argued about the authenticity, but few seemed to question the impact. Whether real or altered, these clips had consequences, not just for Melody, but for everyone involved. Legal experts began raising red flags about potential defamation, invasion of privacy, and even custody implications. Financial consequences were speculated upon, and reputations, once carefully cultivated, were at risk of being permanently tarnished. The public spectacle was no longer just drama, it was real life colliding with social media in a way that had very real implications. And then, just when many thought the story had run its course, Arian finally stepped out of the shadows. After years of silence, judgment, and public ridicule, she spoke. And what she shared wasn't polished, rehearsed, or edited for dramatic effect. It was raw. It was human. She spoke about being misrepresented, about being labeled a villain for choices she never fully controlled, about living in a world where her pain was commodified for entertainment. And in doing so, she changed the conversation. People began to see her not as a homewrecker, but as a woman whose experiences and struggles were far more complex than any television edit could ever convey. At the same time, Martell's return to the public eye with a new relationship ignited fresh speculation. Was this truly a new beginning for him, or was it just another spark thrown into a fire that had never fully died out? And where did Melody fit into this new chapter? She remained at the center of a storm, trying to navigate not only her personal life, but the ongoing scrutiny of the public and media alike. For years, reality television had simplified the story into a digestible, emotionally satisfying narrative, but now the truth was much messier, much more human. The narrative was no longer black and white. It was a complicated web of survival, image, and emotional defense, and every individual involved was doing what they could to protect themselves, their reputation, and their future. Think about it. Arian lived in a box built by public perception, a box labeled villain. For years, she was judged without context, her every move scrutinized and misrepresented. Her pain was entertainment, her struggles were ignored, and yet she persevered. When she finally spoke, it wasn't to create drama, it was to reclaim her story, to assert her humanity, and to show the world that there was far more to the situation than what had been presented. And that's the lesson here. Public perception is often far removed from reality. Social media makes judgment easy, but understanding takes effort, patience, and a willingness to see the nuances. She goes on in the clips to accuse multiple people of actions that sound very serious, but the timeline and context are murky. She mentions being involved in a project she didn't agree to, claims her Instagram page was taken over, and says her poems were deleted. She's also referencing interactions with Queen Sheba and Queen Shiva, and at one point she says, "I want my page back, or you're going to have to delete it because you have everything, including my phone number." And here's where it gets really confusing. She's talking about these accusations while visibly upset, crying, and trying to explain a situation that seems to involve both professional and personal boundaries being crossed. But the clips don't give us the full picture, so as someone analyzing this, I can't tell what's accurate, exaggerated, or maybe even misunderstood. It's emotionally charged, but context is missing, and that's the tricky part here. One of the most concerning parts of these accusations is the alleged exposure of personal information. She mentions that her social security number and other sensitive details from her computer are in the hands of someone else. She questions how this could have happened, saying, "I don't know who would have my social security number or why anyone would ask for it." And that's a fair concern. Social security numbers, access to personal computers, and even phone numbers are extremely sensitive information. The fact that this is being discussed publicly online raises serious questions about boundaries, consent, and how personal information is being handled in this situation. And as viewers, we have to acknowledge that without clarity, it's hard to separate fact from emotion and speculation. She also touches on business concerns, claiming that someone was trying to ruin her business while she believed she was helping someone else. She says, "You're ruining your business as we speak," and complains about not having access to her products or being able to attend a significant event, which she estimates is over $500 worth of lost value. On top of that, she expresses frustration at feeling used by Melody to somehow catch her ex-husband. These are very serious allegations, but the lack of detailed context, like when this access was given, under what circumstances, and who authorized it, makes it difficult to draw conclusions. As a commentator, I have to stress that understanding the timeline and relationships is critical before making judgments. Right now, the story is emotionally compelling, but factually incomplete. To get a sense of what people think, I also asked the audience whether they believe producers of shows like Love and Marriage in Huntsville intentionally pick people with bad marriages to generate drama. Based on the poll so far, about 67 to 69% of people believe the answer is yes. Honestly, I lean towards that perspective as well. If you've watched these shows closely, the number of conflict-filled relationships seems too high to be purely coincidental. Producers know drama drives ratings, and in many cases, the people chosen for these shows are already dealing with complicated personal issues, which are then amplified by the environment and editing choices. This could help explain why private disagreements and social media disputes quickly escalate into public controversies. Returning to Melody's role in all of this, one thing I've noticed is that despite the accusations, there's little evidence of negative feedback about her products. Most comments and reviews online are positive, and people genuinely seem to enjoy her work. That makes the claims about her allegedly sabotaging someone or being involved in this alleged misuse of personal information all the more confusing. It's a strange disconnect between the intensity of these allegations and the broader perception of her business. Again, context is missing, and without it, it's hard to fully understand what motivated these actions or whether they're being accurately represented. Another layer of complexity comes from the emotional presentation in these clips. The woman is clearly upset, crying and expressing frustration over being used or misunderstood. She says things like, "I'm so tired of you hoes playing on my top and with my life," and "I will ruin your business if it's the last thing I do." This level of emotion makes the situation compelling to watch, but it also raises questions about reliability and perspective. When someone is highly emotional, it's easy for statements to come across as exaggerated or confusing, and that's exactly what's happening here. As an audience, we have to balance empathy with critical thinking, acknowledging her feelings while also questioning the missing context. Interestingly, she repeatedly mentions being confused about her own involvement. She questions why she was given access to certain information and projects, why she is included in certain social media posts, and why her work has been used without her consent. This sense of confusion is echoed in her statements like, "I don't know who she is," or "I don't know why I gave anyone access to my computer." This adds to the disjointed nature of the story and makes it hard to follow, even for someone who is trying to piece everything together carefully. What's also noteworthy is how public perception plays into this. Social media allows viewers to form strong opinions based on clips and screenshots, but often without full context. In this situation, fans and commentators are left to speculate. Was she really used by Melody to achieve some goal involving her ex-husband? Was access to her personal information given willingly, or was it coerced? And why bring it all into the public sphere? These questions remain unanswered, and they highlight a larger issue about privacy, boundaries, and perception in the age of reality TV and social media. For Melody, the journey has been equally complex. She fought to protect her reputation amidst accusations, leaks, and public speculation. Her personal information was exposed, her actions misinterpreted, and yet she remained a central figure in a story that had far-reaching consequences, not just for herself, but for those around her. Martell, too, was navigating a complicated web of personal and public pressures. Every decision, every relationship, every public appearance was dissected, analyzed, and debated online. And Arian, who had long been cast as the antagonist, emerged as a voice of authenticity, a reminder that behind every headline, every clip, every screenshot, there are real people with real emotions trying to survive in a world that often refuses to see their humanity. What's striking about this saga is how it forces us to confront the complexities of public life, social media, and reality television. These are not just stories to consume, they're real lives with real consequences. Every leak, every accusation, every clip shared online has the potential to affect relationships, legal outcomes, and reputations. And in this story, perception has repeatedly proven more powerful than reality. The public's need for a simple narrative, a villain, a victim, a hero, clashes with the messy, nuanced truth. And as Arian, Melody, and Martell continue to navigate these challenges, we're reminded that life is rarely as simple as television makes it look. So, who is really at fault? Who is the survivor and who is the villain? Maybe there are no easy answers. Maybe this story isn't about right or wrong, but about people trying to navigate real life under scrutiny, to survive while protecting their truth, their image, and their dignity. One thing is certain, this saga isn't over, and as the narrative continues to unfold, we'll be here, breaking down every twist, every revelation, and every moment that reminds us that behind the headlines, behind the drama, there are real people whose lives are far more complex than anyone outside of them could ever understand.